I'm Sharon Tong. Welcome to In Parliament. Singapore's Parliament has kicked off its annual marathon budget debate with the Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister asking Parliament to approve the government's budget. 25 MPs started the ball rolling on the first day, with many welcoming the move to pay special attention to the elderly, the disabled and the lower income segments of society. Many calls also for more help to go to small and medium-sized enterprises. But before the debate on the budget got underway, Speaker of Parliament Michael Palmer settled business relating to the vacancy of the Hougang seat. He formally announced to members that former MP Yaw Shin Leong has informed Parliament that he has decided not to appeal against his expulsion from the Workers' Party.
In accordance with Clause 2B of Article 46 of the Constitution, I have to therefore inform honourable members that the seat of the member for Hougang became vacant from the evening of 14th February 2012, which was when he was expelled from the political party for which he stood in the 2011 general election.
The debate drew many speeches in support of what many said was an inclusive budget which addressed the needs of the elderly, the low-wage worker and the disabled. MP Jessica Tan kicked off the debate asking the government to consider extending the CPF contribution rates for workers over 65 years. The Finance Minister had announced plans to raise the contribution rates for older Singaporean workers aged 50 to 65 from September this year, but there were no increases for those over 65. Ms. Tan said the economy today is more service than manufacturing based, and that older workers possess the knowledge and experience to deliver higher quality of the service and should also enjoy higher CPF contributions.
The ability to complete the transaction in the shortest time and to provide you with a quality customer experience need not mean that each step must be done in the shortest time, but rather the ability to complete it in the shortest time accurately. So with older workers better educated and having more experience, their ability to provide good service and to understand customer needs will be strong. Their ability to retrieve products, input the service requirements or complete the order quickly can be assisted with suitable technologies to check stocks or to scan products or to use portable input devices to input service requirements.
Mr. Zainuddin Nordin, though, said the government's push for higher productivity to raise income may be irrelevant to older, less skilled workers. He noted that these workers are unlikely to learn a new trade at their age or be sent for training by their companies. Aside from increasing income, Mr. Zainuddin urged the government to look at reducing the living cost of low-wage workers as a way to improve standard of living.
How much of the earnings of a low-wage worker goes to paying direct and indirect government-related taxes, fees, charges, and the like? If we do have some sense of the reality, we could consider options that are more effective in helping them cope with the challenges that they face. Like, what scope exists to reduce these charges, for example?
And still on the lower income, MP for Ang Mo Kio GRC Ang Hin Kee says those on social assistance should be rewarded when they have upgraded their skills and improved their income. He suggested that this group should continue to receive the same subsidies for another year, and also that the government should consider giving a lump sum incentive for this group. Mr. Ang said feedback from social workers have told him that some low-income families were concerned that if they earn a higher income, they will lose out in subsidies.
As such, many may choose not to earn higher income, preferring to stay under the radar. This may result in a disincentive to exit from the social support scheme. Many may even lose the drive to do better and earn more, as they feel that the income increase may not be able to make up for what they lose out in subsidies.
As for the elderly, the MP for Nee Soon GRC, Muhammad Faisal, suggested that the government adopt a reward scheme to encourage active ageing.
The government could also propose incentives for the elderly who lead active lifestyle through the creation of a reward scheme for them to attend health talks and screenings, participate in health-related events where they can accumulate points to redeem for vouchers or cash benefits. This would motivate the elderly to earn investment to their health.
Opposition MP Sylvia Lim said that while the budget has sought to address the needs of the poor, elderly and disabled, she believes more can still be done to ensure greater cohesiveness as a nation. Ms. Lim says a permanent underclass should never be allowed to form and that the poor have to be empowered and their wages raised. The Aljunied GRC MP suggested that long-term care subsidies factor in medical inflation and also called for a rebalance in family responsibility when it comes to healthcare financing.
I agree that family must be the first line of support. But many of us will not agree that all the children must deplete their Medisave accounts to pay for their elderly parents' medical bills before the government intervenes. Given the longer lifespans now, it has been noted that having a 60-year-old draw his Medisave savings to pay the bill of an 85-year-old parent is a reality in Singapore. Is this sustainable? This may in fact entrench intergenerational poverty, which would be more costly to society in the long run.
MP for Aljunied GRC Chen Shou Mao has suggested that investments in the elderly, the disabled and the poor in need of social security would have great social returns. Mr. Chen said beyond social returns, there was also economic and cultural value in making such investments.
Investing in our elderly, the disabled, the poor and other needy Singaporeans will reward society with the economic, social and cultural contributions they will be able to make with assistance. We should not see social outlays only as spendings to be minimized over the short term, but also as investments to be optimized for our long-term benefit. We should seek out such investment opportunities to realize social returns in different areas of social policy, not just social security, but public housing, healthcare, education, and infrastructure and the environment.
But MP for Sembawang GRC Vikram Nair questioned how Mr. Chen intended to fund these investments.
The one question I had is, what does the Workers' Party intend to do on the revenue side? I mean, is it planning to raise taxes or eat into reserves to pay for all these additional programs? Because I think your objectives are noble. I'm just wondering how you'd balance it out.
By the nature of investments, over the term of the investments, we would hope to see returns, both economic returns and social returns, generated by the outlay for this period.
Are you suggesting that we run a deficit to do that? And if so, for how long before we get the returns?
I'm not proposing that we run a deficit to fund additional social spending. But we can look at the numbers, both on the revenue side and how much we hope to make in terms of investments to come to a solution.
Making special employment credit or SEC permanent for the elderly and the disabled. This call from MP Denise Phua, who said SEC should be expanded to cover people with disabilities who did not graduate from special schools. Ms. Phua also suggested reviewing budget allocation for, in particular, defence to help fund future social needs. This year's budget allocated close to 25% to defence.
Whilst I know that the security of our small nation state is critical and defence is not an expenditure to be dispensed with easily, I urge government to study the optimal resources Singapore should expend on defence versus other new and pressing social needs. The study should consider the changing nature of warfare the defence team has to wage, from traditional to cyber wars and terrorism, and balance it with the upcoming and costly social needs of a maturing Singapore.
The silver housing bonus introduced in the budget also came up for debate. The $20,000 bonus is given to elderly households who downgrade from a bigger flat to a 3-room or smaller flat. While MPs called it a good move, they also pointed out that many elderly who own HDB flats are less willing to uproot themselves and downgrade to a smaller flat. MP for Choa Chu Kang GRC Zaki Mohammed says a more rational alternative to that is the lease buyback scheme.
The scheme should be made available for older Singaporeans in larger flats to monetize their needs. The existing position that larger flat owners can downgrade to monetize their assets involve high risk in market cycles and cash transactions, the lease buyback scheme is a safer, more rational alternative. The adoption of the lease buyback scheme may also be better among the middle-income population, as the amounts monetized from larger flats are likely to be higher, and the education profile of the flat owners may mean that they are better able to appreciate how the schemes will benefit them.
Non-constituency Member of Parliament Lina Chiam called the use of the silver housing bonus impractical from a financial perspective. To better provide for retirement needs, she suggested that retirement funds be pegged to the inflation index. She said the government should also consider reducing the amount of proceeds from the sale of homes that have to go into CPF accounts.
This sum that goes into the CPF is not automatically adjusted for inflation. If a Singaporean takes up the scheme without a long-term perspective, the real value of his money in the CPF account might diminish with inflation. Perhaps we should also take a step back and ask ourselves, what do we really want to achieve with our home ownership schemes? What does it mean to buy a home, only to sell it away when we grow old because we need cash badly?
Several MPs gave impassioned speeches about the problems faced by small and medium-sized enterprises, in particular the reduction in dependency ratio ceilings for foreign workers. Opposition MP Chen Shou-Mao questioned the efficiency of the measure and said the Manpower Ministry should refine the dependency ratio ceilings for different industry clusters to ensure more targeted foreign manpower policies. MP for Tampines GRC Baey Yam Keng said the reduction in the foreigner dependency ratio ceilings, when applied across the manufacturing and services industries, is too blunt a tool. Mr. Baey urged the government to look into the needs of specific sectors and adjust ratios accordingly.
We are well aware that this move will result in higher costs in a few areas which will ultimately hit our own wallets. Nonetheless, we can derive a sense of comfort, assurance and pride from knowing that it is a fellow Singaporean who had just fixed our laptop, took our order, cooked our lunch and drove us to work. It is a fellow Singaporean who will be here with us for long haul, not a transient worker. It is a fellow Singaporean getting decent pay to support his parents and his children. This is what it means to be part of a nation tribe.
But there were those who supported the foreign worker measures. Senior Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office, Heng Chee Hao, warned of the risks of continuing to rely on foreign manpower to fuel economic growth. Citing a recent trip to Chongqing, Mr. Heng said Chinese officials told him that the city's success at attracting investments and jobs from the coastal cities was based on cheap land, financing and manpower. But the officials acknowledged that this cheap sourcing strategy was not sustainable in the long term. It was a means to buy time to develop higher value production and services.
What makes us think that the economic development that will occur in the home countries of our foreign labour sources would not naturally reduce the need and the desire of their populations from wanting to leave home and work abroad? And if that happens, and if we are still bound to a model that critically depends on the free and abundant availability of external manpower, then would we not be exposing ourselves to unacceptable risks? And even if that does not happen, then would we not at least be slowing the pace of our innovation and transformation simply because the painkiller was there for us to take for the moment?
I often warn my patients who are otherwise healthy to avoid over-reliance on crutches and braces and other walking or assistive devices when they don't need them. The initial period after they leave these aids behind is difficult, but with the proper guidance, the patient recovers rapidly afterwards and grows from strength to strength. Contrast this to the patient who clings onto these crutches, and this patient will surely slowly deteriorate over time to the point at which any form of mobility becomes excruciating. And so we must act decisively to rehabilitate ourselves from this dependence on foreign labor, while our social and economic muscles are still healthy and able to.
Rising business costs was also another problem for SMEs. MP for Holland Bukit Timah GRC Liang Eng Hua said this would impact a company's bottom line if productivity improvements can't make up for the cost increases. And if labour costs have to go up, Mr. Liang suggested that other costs be held down, in particular cost of land.
If land costs continue to rise at such a rate, our international competitiveness will be eroded even without this round of labour cost increase. Even at the heartlands industrial workshops, where many of the small businesses operate, they are experiencing higher lease renewal costs, sharp rental increase. Just like hawker centres, these industrial workshops offer to businesses no-frills, practical, budgeted workspace to operate. And these businesses, in turn, offer low-cost services and small jobs repairs to residents living in the neighbourhoods.
MP for Ang Mo Kio GRC Inderjit Singh suggested a thorough cost reduction review exercise to help companies with rising costs.
The strategy to restructure is not a bad one, and that is one that will benefit Singapore and Singaporeans in the long run. However, the time horizon that the government has provided for this restructuring to occur needs to be reviewed. We need to have a slower start, but can accelerate later. For now, we should focus on short-term cost issues and allow companies to survive first. My fear is that once again, the government may be inducing a significant squeeze out of SMEs, who are the biggest employers in Singapore today. And if we are not careful, the day that MNCs start moving on in large numbers, we will see a vacuum and a holding out of our economy without a strong base of homegrown companies to take over.
Making his debut speech in Parliament, nominated MP Eugene Tan has urged the government to pay more attention to the plight of the sandwiched middle class. He said the middle income group also have their share of worries as their wages are stagnant relative to the rising costs of living and tax burdens. He also urged the business community to see the budget from a societal perspective and play a larger role in tackling challenges in society.
Businesses can do more and should do more in areas like employability of older Singaporeans, tackling the various forms of workplace discrimination and promoting work-life balance. The need for businesses to step up and play their role in the development of a resilient society is necessary. It is vital for them to do so if the tripartite framework that has served us well is to be sustained and enhanced in tandem with the changing world.
Focusing on women, MP for Yu Hua SMC Miss Grace Fu says this year's budget will help improve their employability. This is especially so for single mothers and those who are caregivers for the elderly. She said the budget put in place a more robust framework to redistribute income so that the lower income segments of the society benefit more.
It is about helping people to help themselves, achieving self-reliance in the long run. Childcare for the single mom so that she can work, and training opportunities for better paid jobs over time. Improved employability and more flexible work arrangements for the middle-aged mother, and opportunities for her teenage children to better their lives through education. Support to care for her elderly mom so that the older single woman can remain gainfully employed with peace of mind.
Nominated MP and trade unionist Mary Liu has urged the government to look into a long-term plan for a reasonable Central Provident Fund or CPF rate for all Singaporeans. She appealed to the government to institute no more CPF cuts and said there should not be a one-size-fits-all approach to the National Savings Scheme. In her maiden speech, Ms. Liu also called on agencies to embrace tripartite cooperation between the state, employers and workers, commending the work of certain bodies in this matter.
But there were other agencies where collaboration is non-existence or where there is only lip service. This will not do. Every government agency must understand whatever industry of activities you are promoting or regulating, it cannot fulfill its mission unless it pays attention to the people working in the industry or activities. And if workers are a key thrust of your strategy to achieve your mission, the labour movement will need to be your partner.
During question time, Transport Minister of State Josephine Teo outlined a picture of Singapore's public transport landscape within 5 years. She said another 51 kilometres will be added to Singapore's rail network when the Downtown Line, North-South Line extension and Tuas West extension are completed. But it will take time for rail capacity improvements to be fully implemented. She also said the government's reviewing rail and bus financing frameworks to ensure that public transport remains affordable.
Our strategies must serve us well
even beyond the next 5 years, and therefore we will also review the Land Transport Master Plan, which was put out 4 years ago.
On electronic road pricing, Ms. Teo says it's possible for charges to fall to zero, but she said this can happen only if traffic speeds are consistently above the optimal threshold. Responding to a question on what plans the government has to resolve traffic congestion, she said there's some lag before ERP rates are adjusted, as traffic speed measurements are done once every quarter. She also said it's too early to speculate on what will happen if and when the next generation ERP system or ERP2 is introduced.
You have to make sure that it can be reliably used for the purposes of road pricing. The tests are still ongoing, and if the ERP2 system is technically feasible, it's still some years before it is ready to be launched and implemented. Once the technology is proven, we will study how we can use the ERP2 system to influence motorist driving behavior more effectively.
An average of 1,200 Singaporeans renounced their citizenship every year between 2007 and 2011. Of these, 300 were naturalised citizens, but the renunciation rates for both naturalised citizens and Singapore-born citizens were low at 0.1% or less. Deputy Prime Minister Teo Chee Hean gave this update and explained why some give up their citizenship, assuring members that every application for citizenship was carefully evaluated.
Every application for permanent residence or Singapore citizenship is evaluated holistically on a range of criteria, including economic contributions, qualifications, age, family profile, and length of stay in Singapore. The reasons for emigration vary. Some emigrants leave for family reasons because of marriage or to reunite with family members overseas, while others do so for a different living environment. All Singapore citizens and permanent residents who own HDB flats will have to sell their properties if they renounce their citizenship or cease to be permanent residents. There are no exceptions to this rule.
More MPs are expected to join the debate on Budget 2012 tomorrow. Join me then. Good night.